Thanks for being here today. This is, I'm getting started with Python. My name is Kurt, and I am a librarian at Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, and I will be your guide today. All right, so what are we going to be doing today? So you should have Python downloaded and ready to go. If not, that is totally fine. You can feel free to follow along. And I believe, and I have a link for a possible alternate website or Python sandbox that you could use. We're going to talk about the interface, learn about statements and syntax rules, create variables, combine data types, make comments, learn about math operators, learn about expressions, and get input from the user. So if you are totally new at programming, Python is one of the more easier languages to kind of like get your feet wet. It's one of the world's most popular languages. The syntax, and we'll talk about what syntax is today. Syntax reads similar to English. It's one of the best languages for beginners. And Python programs are shorter, more efficient, and easier to maintain. So some real world applications. So it's used by Google, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Netflix, and Facebook. And just some more real world applications. So it's used in data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and computer vision. All right, so now we're going to go to our Python website. So python.org, this is the link that I gave you to download Python. If you're on Windows, you can click here where it says download Python. And this is the latest version. If you have something other than Windows, it's like right here, maybe you're using Linux or Mac or something other than that, just go ahead and click there. And it doesn't take very long to download. If you're unable to download this, if you go to pythonsandbox.com, it's just a little sandbox that you can kind of play around with. Okay. All right, so what we're gonna do is, let me open up. All right, so let me go back here. This is in the way. Okay, it's in the way. I don't know how to get rid of it. Okay. All right, so once you have it downloaded, once you have Python downloaded, what we're going to do is start with, we're going to come over here. I'm going to go to my search bar, and you need to type in, click there. If you type in IDLE, this should pop up. So idle, Python, 3.9, 64-bit. And if you click there and open.
Kurt?
Yes.
Are you wanting us to see your screen?
Oh, is it not?
Yeah, we're just seeing the like the PowerPoint kind of, and we're not seeing the Python screen.
Okay, got it.
I think.
Oh, okay, here we go. Got it. Okay, how about now?
Now we are, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so let me start over. Okay, so we download Python, and in my search bar, so once it's downloaded and ready to go, I go in your search bar, and if you type IDLE, you should see this pop up. All right, and so this is what we're going to be using, right? So if you go ahead and give that a click. All right, so this should pop up, and I'm going to just maximize my screen. All right. Okay, here we go. So this is called what we call a shell. And this is our Python shell that we're going to be using. We're going to be using a file as well. We're going to start with our shell. And so idle stands for, which is what we're in right now. So idle shell, and then this is the latest version of Python so far. And so it stands for Integrated Development Environment. So our shell here can be used to run single commands and print the result to the screen. So for example, let's say we want to add 50 plus 50. So I'm typing 50 plus 50 in my shell.
Does it still work if you have 10.4? Will work the same way? Mine says
Sorry.
idle shell 3.10.4, not 3.95.
It should be fine. Are you on Windows?
Yeah.
And you said it's. I can't really hear you. Sorry, I'm turning up my volume.
10 point. It's 3.10.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, you should be fine.
Alrighty.
This I will say, I downloaded this a while ago.
Oh, okay.
So this has been on my computer for a while. So I'm sure the latest version.
I can get to Windows.
Yeah.
All right, got it. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. So this is. All right. I'm gonna have to ask y'all to mute yourselves so that way. I'm not sure if someone's asking a question or not, but if you're not, if y'all can go ahead and mute yourselves. All right. Thank you. All right. So we are in our shell right now, and so we can use this to do single commands, right? So right now, as you can see, I have 50 plus 50 in the shell, and if I press enter, okay, we get 100. Okay, and we can do this. And again, this is just single commands, right? So if I do 10 plus 50, right, we get 60. Okay. Now, again, this is just a single command, right? What if we want to do more commands, right? We want to have several commands. We're going to have to use an editor, okay? So this is good for single commands, but we're going to be writing programs, okay? So this shell will not be good enough, all right? So what we need to do is open up a new file. So to do that, if you come over here, right, so I'm in File, okay? So I'm clicking on File, and I want a new file, okay? Or you can press Control-N if you are in Windows. So click there. And so this should pop up here, right? It's called untitled right now, but we can change that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put these side by side. So there we go. Right, so we have our shell on the left side, and we have our editor on the right side, okay? So what I need to do is, this needs to go away. I don't know if I can move this. It's kind of in the way. But anyway, so I want to first save this file here. So let's go to File and Save. All right, and so I need to go. Sorry, this is my personal computer. So, all right, so I created a folder called Python. All right, and so we need to name the file. All right, so you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it practice. Okay, so I'm calling it practice. And here where it says save as type, leave this alone. Python files is what you want to save it as. So Python files are saved as, they end in .py, kind of like, you know, how like a Word document ends in, you know, dot, or maybe a docx file. Python files end in .py. So this is totally fine, right? So call it whatever you want. I'm calling mine practice, and I'm saving it in my Python folder and save it, okay? And so now, as you can see, it is called practice.py, which is what we want. All right. So we're going to talk about, again, if this is your first time learning about a programming language, Python is really good. To start, we're going to talk about these statements and rules, right? So a program is usually called a script, and scripts consist of commands, right? And each command is called a statement. All right, and then the computer executes the statement from top to bottom, right? So if you've ever taken a computer class, a programming class, I know that your first program is usually a Hello World program, right? And so we're going to do the same thing here. And to do this, I want to show you, whoops, I need to move this. There we go. All right. And so what I'm going to do in my editor, we're going to use a keyword called print. Okay. And so we're going to type in print, and then in parentheses, and quotes, I want it to say, whoops, excuse me, hello world. I'm going to close it. Why is that not moving? And I'm going to, there we go. All right, so print hello world, okay? And so print is one of the keywords in Python, all right? So let's say I want this to run, right? I want this to run, and so we need to do two things first. The first thing, we need to go ahead and save our file. So let's go to File and Save, all right? So File and Save, and then we need to go ahead and run it, right? So I wanna run this code, right? So if you come over here to run, and where it says run module, go ahead and click there. And if you look over here, back in our shell, look, it says hello world, okay? So you've actually written your first Python program, okay? So print hello world, and we're gonna talk about this a little bit more, all right? Okay, yeah, there we go. So print hello world, and we need to save it and run it, and it will pop up over here in our shell, okay? All right, so not too bad, right? Print parentheses hello world, okay? All right, so let's talk about this a little bit more. So we're gonna talk about something called syntax, right? And so this is, it's a fancy word for rules in a programming world. So like English, like English, French, Spanish, they all have their own rules for grammar and sentence structure, right? And programming languages have their own rules too. And this is what we call syntax. All right, so let's come back over here. So the print function, right? So when you use the print function, right, this prints to the shell over here, right? Whatever we put between the opening and closing parentheses, okay? If you want a text string to print, okay? So like hello world, I wanted hello world to print to the shell. You have to do a couple of things, right? One, you have to make sure it's in parentheses. Two, you have to make sure it's in quotation marks, okay? Right, so make sure you have what you want to print to the shell in between your quotation marks. Make sure you have the print keyword and your parentheses. And when you run it, so let me see. So I'm going to do another print statement. How are you today? Right. So make sure you close your parentheses, put them in quotations. All right. You need to file and save it and then run it again. Okay. So now we see hello world. How are you today? Okay. So when you follow these rules, you will be able to print to the shell. All right. Oh, and another thing, the print keyword is case sensitive. Okay. So what happens if you type in a capital P, right? So if I do something like this, right, and I want to do hello world, I'm going to close it in parentheses, quotation marks and then parentheses. What I'm going to do is get rid of these two lines here. All right, so remember, it's case sensitive. So right here, I have a print with a capital P, right? And I have my parentheses and I have hello world in quotation marks. Let's see what happens if we try to run this. So I'm going to save it and run, and look what happens. Right, so we get an error. Okay, so here, if you look over here, it says a name error, name print is not defined. Okay, so again, the keywords are case sensitive, so you want to make sure you have a capital P. Okay, so our code is no good, pretty much. Okay, you may hear this, you may hear people say, your code is broken. That means it's not good. However, you can fix it, right? So we can fix this code, right? If we get rid of the capital P, put in a lowercase, all right, and I'm gonna save it again. If I can get this out of the way. All right, so save and run. All right, there we go. So hello world, right? So we just fixed our broken code, right? So it's not broken anymore. So just be careful if you ever see an error, you wanna be close attention to what the error is saying. So again, here it says name print is not defined, right? Make sure you just have a lowercase p and you are good to go. All right. So just a little bit of our rules in the programming world. All right. All right, so we're going to move on now to variables. All right, and so a variable is used to store data. All right, you can think of it like a container with information inside to help run your program. Right, so an example in real life is maybe like an online form that's capturing your name and your address. All right, and so the user's input is stored also in variables. And so to create a variable, a couple things. So I'm going to get rid of this hello world. All right, so your variable first, it needs to be declared and it needs to be assigned a value. So what I'm going to do is create a variable. I'm going to call it city. Okay, so I'm calling my variable city and equals, and I'm going to assign it a value. All right, so my variable is called city. Remember, a variable is used to store data. All right, and so my variable called city, I'm going to assign it Charlotte. Okay, so my city equals Charlotte, right? So I have declared my variable called city, and I am assigning it a value of Charlotte. I am putting it in quotation marks here. All right, and this is the proper syntax to assign a variable here. All right, so for a string, we'll talk about strings in a little bit. Just for now, just know that we have a variable named city, and I'm assigning it the variable I'm assigning it the value Charlotte. All right, so what we've just done was we made a variable called city and we assigned it to Charlotte. Now let's say I want to print this, okay? Let's say I want to print the city, right? So I'm going to another line, and what I'm going to do, we're going to use that keyword that we used a little bit earlier, right? So print, all right? So I'm going to print, all right, the city, okay? So print our variable city, okay? So if I run this, what do you think will get printed in the shell? Do you think it will just print the word city, or will it print Charlotte? Okay, well, let's find out. So I'm printing the city, the variable city, which is assigned Charlotte. So if I save it, right, so I'm saving it and I'm running it, okay, so as you can see, it's printing Charlotte, right? I am printing the city, and the city is equal to Charlotte. And so that is why Charlotte appears in our shell here, okay? All right, so if you print another one, so let's do another example. So what I can do, actually, what I'll do is this. So I'll get rid of Charlotte, and I will name another city in North Carolina. So let's see, off the top of my head, I'll do Matthews. Okay, so the city equals Matthews, right? And I want to print the city. All right, so I'm going to file and save. And if you run it, okay, so there you go. So now it's Matthews, right? Why? Because remember, the city is equal to Matthews, and I'm printing the city. Okay, and it will print the variable here, right? City, and that is assigned to Matthews, and so that is why Matthews appears in our shell here. All right, and so this is what we call this here, right? We're called, again, a variable is used to store data, right? So, excuse me, I have declared it, right? It's called city, and city is equal to Matthews. Print the city, and there you go. And if this won't go away, okay, I need to see if I can get rid of this because it's going to keep bothering me. Okay, maybe down there. Yes, that's much better. All right, And again, you can change it to whatever city you want, right? So do Mint Hill. Go ahead and save it and run. Okay, there you go. All right. Now, there are rules to naming variables. Okay. So a variable can be named almost anything, right? There are a couple of rules, and these rules, I believe, are in your getting started guide. I just want to double check. Yes, so the getting started guide, it's in page 4 that I sent yesterday. So these rules are in there, right? So they can't start with a number, all right? They cannot use reserved keywords like if or print. So we can't use print equals something because it won't work, right? Print is already used, right? They are case sensitive, okay? They cannot contain spaces, right? So if you can use something that's called snake case, okay? And it's just an example. This is an example of snake case. So maybe something like this, city, North Carolina, something like that. All right. And of course, you want to be clear, consistent. Okay. This one's pretty simple, right? Not too bad. All right. All right. So I have a little bit of a question for y'all. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. All right. So I'm going to type in a couple of variables here. So color equals blue. I'm going to have another one. Color equals red. I'm going to make another one. Let's say yellow. And one more, green. Okay, so I have 4 variables here. Color equals blue, color equals red, yellow, and green. Now my question is, if I were to print this, let's say I want to print the color. Okay, so print color. What color do you think is going to appear in a shell? Blue, red, yellow, or green? So I'll give you just a couple of seconds to think about that. All right, so I have 4 variables here, and I want to print the color. So the question is, what color do you think will print to our shell? So I just went ahead and saved it. And so let's go ahead and run this. So if you said green, you are correct. All right, so now why green and not blue or red or yellow, right? Remember what I said a little bit earlier? So the code reads from top to bottom. So let's talk about what's going on here. So first, we are assigning the color blue, right? We're saying blue is the color, right? But now we go to this next line, and now we're saying the color is now red, right? And so the next line, now we're saying it's yellow. So we're kind of getting rid of the blue, we're putting in red. We're getting rid of the red, putting in yellow. We're getting rid of the yellow, we're putting in green, right? And so now the color is green, and that is why we get green, right? So it's from top to bottom, right? So it started as blue, then red, then yellow, then green, okay? And so that's why we get green, okay? All right, so next we're going to talk about data types. And yeah, so we're going to talk about, should I leave this here? Yeah, I'll leave it here. Okay, so common data types. And this is something that you'll learn in other programming languages. All right, so common data types, for example, one is of course a string, which we've seen several times, right? And so a string is not something that you calculate, so I'll type it in here, right? And so you can wrap text strings with single or double quotes. So here's an example. So what we have, this is an example of a string, right? So we have text and it's wrapped in quotation. All right, now The only thing is that you have to be consistent, right? So you cannot have, I have double quotes here, right? And you can't have a double on one side and a single on the other side. It's going to cause an error, right? Same thing, you can't have a single on one side and a double on the other side. If you were to try to print it, it'll give you an error. So you can either have both single quotes or both double, but you can't have a mix like this, okay? And so this works, and whoops, this works as well. All right, so this is an example of a string. All right, next is an integer. All right. So an integer is a whole number, positive or negative, right? Without decimals, the length is unlimited. So just some examples. So 7 is an example of an integer, right? It's positive, right? There's no decimal point there. Oops, excuse me. Negative 100, same thing. That is also an integer. All right, positive or negative, and this is negative. It's a whole number, right? 385, same thing. These are examples of integers. All right. Next is something called a float. All right. And so a float, or a floating point number, is also a number, positive or negative, right? However, difference between a float and an integer is that these have decimal points. So for example, 3.1 is an example of a float. Negative 9.7 is another example. 5.5, another example, okay? That's an example of a float, right? So string, integer, float. Boolean, whoops, is another example. There's another example of a data type, right? So Boolean values are either true or false, okay? And this is good when you start asking the computer to make decisions. So Booleans are either true or false, okay? And then finally, another data type is called a list. Now, if you've taken, well, I'll leave that one. So another type is called list, right? And so a list is a collection of data, right? So an example of a list is like this. So blue, and I'm separating them with commas. So green, and let's do red. Okay. And where's there it is. So this is an example of a list. Okay. So these are some of the more common data types. And you see these in many different programming languages, right? So string, integer, float, Boolean, lists. So like, for example, if you were to take a Java class, you would learn about these data types: string, integer, float, Boolean, list. I believe in Java it's called an array and not a list. Okay. But yeah, so here are examples of the common data types. Okay. So now, I'm trying to get rid of this here. Well, I guess I can stay. All right, so now that we learned about data types, or the more common ones, we can talk about combining data types, okay? So you can combine different data types by using commas in your print statement. All right, so for example, I'm going to get rid of all of this, okay? So give it another couple seconds in case someone was writing some stuff down. All right, I'm going to get rid of all of this here. All right. I don't know why that's staying here. Oh, well, I see we have a question. Oh, yes, okay. Okay, got it. All right, so now we're talking about combining data types. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to create some more variables here. So I'm going to call one variable text1, right? And so now let's call this distance to the toy store. Okay, so I have a variable called, this variable is called text1, and I'm assigning it the string distance to the toy store, right? I'm going to create another variable called distance, and let's assign that the number 3. Okay, so I'm assigning it the integer 3, and then I'm going to create a text2, and I'm going to give it another string called miles from home. All right, so now let's say I want to combine all of this. I want to say distance to toy store 3 miles from home. Okay, so if I want to combine these, all right, I want to combine these data types. So as you can see, we have a string, integer, string. So if you want to combine these, okay, remember you need to use a comma, all right? And so the comma will combine them. So here's what we need to do. So I'm going to use the print keyword, okay? So we're going to print. So remember, print would need parentheses, right? So here's how to do this. Okay, so you want to be very careful, right? So I'm going to do text1, okay? Now, comma, right? So text1, comma, distance, okay? Another comma, and then finally text2, okay? So it's going to combine these data types because we have the commas here, all right? So what happens when we save it and run? Okay, and so if you look over here in our shell, it says distance to toy store 3 miles from home. The only thing I missed was a colon there at the end of toy store. So I'll save it and I will run again. There we go, that looks better. All right, so if you look down here, distance to toy store 3 miles from home, okay? So if you want to combine data types, right? So again, we have a string, integer, string. To combine data types, we need to use a comma, okay? So print text1, right? So what is equal to text1? Distance to toy store, right? What is our distance? 3, right? Distance is equal to 3. And what is our text2? Miles from home. So that is why we get distance to toy store 3 miles from home. Basically what this is saying is print whatever's equal to text number 1, right? So this is toy store. Print the distance, whatever the distance is assigned to, so 3, and then print whatever text2 is assigned to, or is equal to, right? So that's why we get miles from home. So distance to toy store, 3 miles from home. Okay, and so you print it, remember, separate with commas. And so this is why we get distance to toy store, 3 miles from home. All right. All right, so strings and numbers cannot be combined, right? So if you take JavaScript, right? If you know JavaScript, you can combine different data types, right? Yeah, Java can do that. Python no, right? So you have to use these commas here. For example, oh well, there's a fancy computer science term called concatenate. It's just a fancy word for combining combining data types. Okay. All right. So I want to show you something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all of this. And so what happens if we try to do something like this? I try to do hello plus 30, right? And I want to print it. This is something that you can do. You can get away with this in JavaScript. Python, not so much, right? So if I file and save and I run, look here, we have a problem, okay? So it says hello plus 30, right? It says we have a type error. It says can only concatenate, combine string, not integer, to string, right? So we can only combine string to string, not integer, which is what this 30 is, to string, which is what this hello is, okay? So we have to use a comma to combine data types in Python. All right. So I want to go back. I'm going to, let's see, I need to undo, and I'm going to Control Z a couple times because I want my, there we go. So I Control Z, so I undo, right? And so if I try to get rid of the commas here, and if I try to do a plus to try to combine them, right? And so again, you cannot get away with this in Python, but I just want you to see what happens if we try to combine data types using a plus sign. So save and run. Okay. So we have a problem. It's the same problem, right? So we cannot combine or concatenate string to integer. We can only do string to string, right? So you cannot use a plus sign here to combine data types. You have to use commas, right? And so that is how you combine data types in Python. So what I'm going to do is get rid of these, put my commas back. I'm going to save and run, and it should be good to go. There we go. Okay. And what I'm going to do, actually, I want to clear all this. Unfortunately, there's no way that I found that you can clear all of this. So what we'll have to do is, because I don't want all of this mess here, I'll just have to close it and reopen whoops, I spelled idle wrong. There we go. There we go. Okay. So I just have a nice clean shell now. So what I did, I just exited out and opened a new one. All right. So now I'm going to get rid of this here. All right. So question. So I'm going to type a couple of some data here, and let's talk about the data type it represents. Yes, thank you. All right. All right. And okay. So I have a couple of things here. And so let's talk about the data types that they represent. So at the very top, that's a city, not town. As you can see, it's in quotation marks here, right? So this represents, it's an example of a string, okay? This big old number that we have here, right? It's a whole number, right? There's no decimal points. It's positive, right? So it's an integer. Okay. False. Remember, that's a Boolean. Boolean returns true or false. 3.14. 3.14, as we can see, it is not quite an integer. We have decimal points here, right? So we call that a float. A phone number. All right. So a phone number, right? So that is another string, right? Because you don't combine, right, or calculate a phone number, right? So that's a string. Now, hello world. So hello world, as you can see, the only problem is that it's not in quotation marks, right? So it's not quite a string, right? So really, it's nothing. But if we wanted to make this a string, right, all we have to do is put it in quotation marks. Remember, single or double. And so now it's a string. Okay. All right. So I think we need to talk about something that's pretty important next. I mean, it's all important. But I want to talk next about creating comments. All right. So you can create comments in your code. All right. So comments act like sticky notes, right? It helps you or other programmers make sense of your program, right? And so let's say, you know, we're working on this, right? We're writing all this code and we can add a comment, right? Saying, you know, this code is, you know, we're doing Python practice. And maybe a year later, you know, we open it, we're like, what is this file? And we open it and we see a comment that says, this is Python practice. And it's also good if you were to send a file to someone else, right? Then they know what the code is all about. So if we want to create a comment in our code, right, all we have to do is, and I'm looking for it, we use this pound symbol here, right? It's red. And this is an example of a comment. Okay. As you can see, it's in red. We use a pound symbol. And so we use the pound symbol to create a comment. So this is an example. All right. This is a second comment. All right. And this is a third comment. Okay. Now, this is not a comment. Okay. It is not a comment, right? Because we don't have it, we don't have a pound symbol in front. And if you notice, it's not red. When it's a comment, your text is all red. All right. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to undo again, because I want to go back to the code that I had. There we go. Actually, no, I don't want that. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to comment out some code here. All right, actually, I don't need this. I know what I'm going to do. Let's go back to print hello world. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this. So first, I want to save and run. Okay, so it opened up in a new shell. That's okay. So I would just use that instead. All right. Now, what happens if I comment this out? Okay. So to make a comment, again, pound symbol, and you see that it's all red now. So do you think if I print this out, hello world will appear? Let's find out. So let's run it. And as you see here, we see nothing, right? And so when you put in a comment, it won't read it, or it won't print at all, right? So that's why we don't see a hello world here. We commented it out, right? But if I remove the comment, save and run, again, we get the hello world. All right. So anything that you put a comment in front of, it will not execute at all. All right. So what I'll do here, I wonder if can I get away with, yes. So we have a commented out hello world and we have a not commented out hello world. So we should only see one, right? So there we go. And if I get rid of the comment, then we should see two hello worlds. There we go. Okay. So anything that you want to comment out, make sure you put a pound symbol. And what I will do here, let's say I was passing this my file on to like a friend or a coworker, and I'll say this is Python practice. Okay. And so when they open this file, they know that there's a comment here that says this is Python practice. Okay. And if so I remember in my computer science classes, you know, they always said to, you know, make sure you put comments in your code to say, you know, this is what this does, what that does. So it's very good to comment your code, especially when you start getting lines and lines and lines of code. You want to make sure you comment it because, of course, you know, you might, maybe a year from now, you open it and you have no idea what it is. So it's definitely good to have comments in your code to kind of refresh your memory or to let anyone else know what's going on with your code. Okay. So very good practice to comment your code. And again, to do a comment, all you need to do is put a pound symbol in front and your text will be red, or anything that is after that pound symbol will be red. Okay. All right. So at the very beginning, we did a little bit of single math commands in the shell, right? So I'm just going to talk a little bit about math operators. All right, so Python code can perform calculations like we did earlier, right? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And if you remember, it calculates using the order of operations or PEMDAS, right? So PEMDAS, for example, if I type in the shell 3 plus 2 and times 4 and enter, you get 11, right? So PEMDAS, right? So we have to do the multiplication first. So we do 2 times 4, which is 8. And then of course the 3 plus 8, which is 11. All right. And we will get a little more complicated in a second, but that's just a little bit on math operators. Okay, so we can do some math operators in the shell here. And it's calculating using PEMDAS. All right. Next, we're going to move on to expressions. So an expression is any piece of code with a calculation that evaluates to a single value. All right, just going to flip my page here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, so I'm going to create some variables. So I'm going to have A equal 15 plus 15 on another variable called B, and I want that to be equal to 3 plus 3. All right, now I want to combine A and B, right? So I want this to add A and B together. So I'm going to create another variable called the sum. Now, you want to be careful here, okay? So you want the sum, to be equal to, right? So I want A and B to be added together, right? So I want the sum to be equal to A plus B. All right, and then finally, I want it to print the sum. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on here. I have A equal to 15 plus 15. I have B equal to 3 plus 3. And then I have another variable called sum that's going to add A and B. And then finally, I want it to print, right? So print that sum. So if I save and run, you get 36. All right, so how did we get 36? Okay, let's look at our code. So the sum is equal to A plus B. So if you look at A, that is equal to 15 plus 15, right? So 15 plus 15 added together, you get 30, right? So A is really equal to 30. B, 3 plus 3, right? 3 plus 3 is 6. So B is equal to 6, right? And so what we're saying in that next line is the sum equal to A plus B. Well, here we did our calculation, right? So what we're really doing is 30 plus 6, right? So whatever A is plus whatever B is, right? So 30 plus 6, and you print that sum. So the sum is equal to 36, and you print that sum, which is 36. Okay? So that's how we got 36, right? I have A equal to 15 plus 15, B is equal to 3 plus 3. Sum's going to add them up and go ahead and print here. Okay. So not too bad, right? So if you're confused, just look here. We have A equals 30, B equals 6, add them together, 36. There you go. So this is another example of an expression. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, right? So what we've been doing really, so like, as you can see over here, 3 plus 2 times 4, we were doing math calculations in the shell, right? So we've been using the shell basically as a calculator. All right, so I want, actually, let me do this, comment this out, all of it. There we go, right? And so remember, it's commented out, so there won't be any, there you go, it's empty, okay? I'm just leaving this here just in case you may want to write this down. All right, so we can also do a long expression as well. So for example, let's say I want to print. All right, and so I have 3 plus 1 times 2 minus 6 divided by 3. Okay. All right, so remember, we're going to use the order of operations. Now, I want to show you something. So if I file and save and run, now, do you notice that we have a 3.0, right? And not 3. So you may be wondering, why do we have a 3.0, not 3? So this is because we talked about floats earlier, and because we have a division in the operation, it becomes a float, right? And so that is why we get 3. And if you're wondering how this calculated to 3, right? And so you have to use the order of operations, right? And so PEMDAS, right? So you have to do the multiplication first, right? So that's first. So you have to do the multiplication. So that's 2, right? And then over here, the 6 divided by 3 is also 2. So you have 3 plus 2 minus 2, right? So 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 minus 2 is 3. Because we have division, it's a float. And so you get 3.0. All right. Yep. There we go. All right. So I think we are ready to talk about getting input from the user. So we have been doing, as you can see, we've done a lot of printing, right? But let's say we want to interact with the user, right? The way that we do this is through input, right? And so Python by default stores input as a string. So what I'm going to do now is get rid of all of this. And we're going to talk about getting input. So the input function, all right, and so I will type it in here. So the input function, which is, there we go. This allows us to get, type info from the user. Okay. So the input function allows us to get type information from the user. I'm going to comment this out. Okay. All right. So we need to get input from the user, right? And so we also need to store the input somewhere. All right. So we're going to store the input in variables, right? We're going to do name and city and pets. Okay. So here's what we'll do. So let's do this. So let's say, so I have, whoops, excuse me. Before I do that, we're going to store the input in several variables. First, I want the user's name, right? So I have a variable called name, and this is going to be equal to, right? And so we're doing the input function, and so I want their name. So input, what is your name? Okay, and then close, right? And so this is the input function. What is your name? Right? And so when we get our response, it will store it into the name variable. Okay. I want another variable called city because I want to know the city, or we could do state. I think state may be, yeah, state may be better. That's okay. So I'll just call it state. Okay. We need another input function. And so what state were you born in? Okay. Whoops, and I made a little mistake. I didn't include, there we go. And question mark and close. Okay, so what is your name? What state were you born in? And another one. So I want to know how many pets they have, right? So we're going to do another input function. Okay. There we go. And then how many pets do you have? Oops, and I forgot the question mark. There we go. Okay, so what is your name? What state were you born in? And how many pets do you have? Okay. And so we are using the input function because we want input from the user. Okay. Right. And so what I can do here is I will save and let's run. And do you see here now it's asking the user for your name, right? And so I can type in my name, okay? And as you can see, it's asking for my name, so I type my name in and I press enter. And so it's asking us the next question, right? So what state were you born in? Well, I was born in New York. Okay, so I was born in New York and enter. And how many pets do you have? Well, sadly, I have no pets. So I will put a big fat 0. Okay, and there you go. So that is how you get input from the user by using the input function. All right, and so we stored them in variables, right? So the name variable is equal to the input, what is your name? Same thing for the state, what state were you born in? And pets, how many pets do you have, right? All right, so that is how we can get input from the user. And like we said before, by default, all of these are stored as strings, okay? The responses are stored as strings, okay? So I want to show you something else. So let's talk about the data type syntax, right? So we talked about data types, right? So we talked about the string, we talked about integer, float, right? So those were the big 3 that we've been using and so far, right? And so this is how you would input data types, right? So these are more Python keywords. And so str stands for string, int stands for integer, and float stands for float. And this is important, right? So what I said earlier, it stores these all as strings by default when the response is as strings. But sometimes we need to control how Python reads the information that we get from the user, okay? So to tell Python the type of data that we want, all we need to do is put one of these data types in front of the input function, all right? So we are doing this because we want to tell Python we want a string from this user, right? We want an integer from this user. So for example, So we say, what is your name, right? Your name, right, is going to be a string, right? Your name's not a number, right? It's not an integer. Your name's not 5.5, right? We want a string, right? And so I want to tell Python, I want this specific data type from this user, from this question, okay? So to make this make sense, what I'm going to do is come back up here, right? So what is your name? I want for your name, it needs to be a string. So to do that, we are going to put str for string in front of the input function. So I need to close this with parentheses. All right. So what is your name? We want a string. Okay. Same thing for the state, right? What state were you born in? Oops, str, close with parentheses. What state were you born in? We want a string, right? Were you born in North Carolina? Were you born in South Carolina? Were you born in New York, right? So we're getting a string. Now, the integer makes sense here, right? For the pets question, how many pets do you have, right? I'm telling Python that we want an integer, right? You have 1 pet or 2 pets or 3 pets, right? We don't want to float, right? You don't have 2.5 pets, right? I hope not. Right, so I want an integer. Okay, so how many pets do you have? I want an integer. Okay. I'm going to comment this out. Yeah, whoops, excuse me. I'm going to comment these out here. Okay. So now this makes a little bit more sense, right? So what is your name? We're telling Python that we want a string, right? What state were you born in? We're telling Python we put a string in front of the input function, right? And we want a string, right? And for the number of pets, how many pets do you have? We want an integer response, okay? JD, do you have a question? I see your hands raised.
Yes. Sometimes when I make like apple, it is replaced it by orange, and I said Prince Apple. It's in the console. It's not Prince Orange. It's Prince Apple again.
I'm not quite sure I caught that. Can you repeat that?
Yes. I'm saying that sometimes like I write in the Python like orange, it is replaced by apple, and when I print apple, it's not so orange, it is so apple again.
I'm not sure. Hold on, I'm trying to think. So you're saying when, I should write this down. So you're saying when it's printing, I think I heard you said when you're printing one thing and you're getting another. Is that what I'm getting?
That's what it sounded like the question was.
Huh. I think I heard, I think when you print an orange, you're getting an apple or something like that. Is that it? Can I get back to you after class? Are you okay with that? That way I can understand it a little bit better. Oh.
JD, did you hear Kurt say we can get back to you?
Now I understand.
Oh, okay. You know what I will do? Let me stop sharing for a second. Let me send you a message.
I already understand the question that I asked. I've solved the problem.
Oh, okay. How did you solve that?
Add a little bit, like I don't know. Okay.
Oh yeah, if you want to stick around after, because I want to be able to understand your question a little bit better, if you're okay with that.
I have add a little bit symbol to let the sentence work.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll check in with you after. Okay. All right. We were formatting the input, right? And so we are getting, yeah. So over here, we are making sure we want a string for the name, we want a string for state, and we want an integer response for the number of pets. Okay, and you want to use these little keywords here, right? So string, str, integer, int, float, float. Okay. All right. Now, let's go ahead and run these again. Okay, and you're not going to see much of a difference, but on like the back end, we're letting Python know this is what we're trying to get from the user. Okay, So let's just run it again. So I'm going to save and run, right? So again, it's just asking for your name, the state that you were born in. I was born in New York and I have no pets. Okay. All right. So, oh yeah. And so there's one more thing I want to do. I want to create a print. Okay. So now I want to combine all of this. Okay. All right. So I want to combine all of this here. Right. So I wanted to say, hello, your name, you were born in whatever state, and you have this many pets. All right. So what we're going to do is combine all of this by saying, I'm going to type in some things. So hello, right? And then remember, if you want to combine data types, right? You don't want to use a plus symbol, right? You have to use a comma. So I'm going to combine all of this using a comma. So hello, comma, right? And so we want the name, right? So we have to type in the name, right? The variable, hello name, right? And I'm just spacing it out so that way you can see this a little bit better. Okay. Next, you were born in. Okay, so you were born in. And then I want that to give us the state, right? So hello, your name, you were born in whatever state. Okay. And you have, I'm gonna close that. Remember, you're using commas to combine everything. And pets. And pets. There we go. All right. So now we have everything. I'm going to close it. And so here's what happens. So we have a lot going on here, and that's totally fine. What's going to happen here? I'm going to file. I'm going to save. So let's run it. All right. So it's asking us for our name again. So we'll go ahead and type in our name. So what is your name, right? Now, what state were you born in? All right, and how many pets do you have? All right, so I've typed in my name, I've typed in my state, I've typed in the number of pets that I have, and I press enter and look here. So it's a little bit spaced out. That's totally fine. But if you look here, it says hello, it has your name, right? And it says you were born in the state and you have this many number of pets, right? So I think what I need to do, actually, that's fine. What I may need to do is just kind of get rid of some of these spaces, and I think that may help. I spaced it out so that way you can see everything better. All right. What did I just do? Okay, so let's try this again. And maybe that'll be better. Oh, you know what? I think I know what's happening. Okay, I know what's going on. It's because I'm adding a space after, which I shouldn't, I don't have to do that. So that's why it's giving us extra space here. So you don't have to add an extra space here like I did. I think that's why it's giving us extra spacing. Okay. But if you look, we have hello, and we have you were born in New York and you have 0 pets, right? So it's not too bad, right? All right. And again, we let Python know that we want a string for the name, we want a string for the state, we want an integer for the pets. All right. And I think a couple of things about coding is you are definitely going to make mistakes. You're going to be typing some stuff, you're going to run it, and you're going to probably come up with some errors. So you're definitely going to make mistakes, which is totally fine. Because, you know, these errors, like, you know, the errors that I was showing you earlier, like the type errors, you know, we put in a single quote on one side and a double quote on the other, and it gave us an error. All of these things, these errors will help you get better at coding. So anytime you see an error, you know, it's not the end of the world. You know, just look at the error, see what the problem is, look at your code, and fix it. Okay. All right. And it's definitely good to play around with your code, see if you can sometimes break it and how you broke it and how to fix it. All this is totally fine. I've done all these things. I'm sure many programmers have done these things. Okay, I've definitely played around with my code a lot. Okay, and of course, I think the error messages are your friend. Okay, they will, for the most part, they should let you know what's going on. It's not going to tell you how to fix it usually, but it gives you an idea of like, hey, you know, this is the problem. So remember earlier when we tried to combine the strings with a plus sign, it was telling us, hey, you can't combine, you can't combine this, right? So we know that we can't use a plus symbol, right? In Python, you have to use a comma, and that's how you combine data types in Python. So the errors are your friend. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get rid of all this. So we are almost done, right? So now all that's left is to do our 2 programs, right? So we've written a bunch of little programs, and we're going to write 2 more programs. All right. And so these are in your well, oh no, they're in your activity guide that I gave you. And so if you turn to the back where it says program 1 and 2, we're going to be doing that next. So the first program, and I'm going to pull it up on my Word document in case you don't have it. So I'm going to scroll down. And so I'm going to zoom in. And so we are working on this program right now. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to work on this. So we're going to add 2 numbers, right? And so just read the directions here. So you're going to store 1 number in a variable, right? You're going to store a second number in a different variable. And then you're going to write a program, right? Your program's going to add the 2 numbers, and you want it to print like this. Okay. All right. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to work on program number 1. And then, oh, and by the way, there's several possible solutions for this. Okay. So we will go over this in a little bit. All right. But just give it a shot. All right. Okay, so let's talk about this. I'm going to get rid of this shell again. Kind of open up a fresh one. All right, and there we go. Actually, you know what's going to happen? I think it's going to open up a new one anyway. That's okay. All right, so let's talk about this first program. So the first one is we're going to add 2 numbers, right? So we're going to store 1 number in a variable. And again, there are many solutions to this, okay? So what I'm going to do is come over to my editor. I'm going to call it first number. Okay. Yes. All right, so first number, and I'm just going to assign it 50. Okay. Now, we're going to store a second number in a different variable. So if you remember, this is this. So I have first and I have the underscore and a number. This is an example of snake case. Okay. So second underscore number equals 75. Right. So I want to add these two numbers. Okay. So let's write a program that adds the two numbers. Right. So that's what we're doing. So what I'm going to do is call this the sum. Right. So the sum is going to be equal to the first number. And we're going to add that to the second number. Okay. And then finally, all we need to do is print the sum. Okay. So you should have something like this, right? So the first number is equal to 50. The second number is equal to 75. And the sum is going to add these first two numbers, and then you're going to print it. Okay. So save and let's run. Okay. Yep. I knew it was going to make another one. That's okay. So you get 125, right? Oh, and then another thing. So this is one of a possible solution here. This is kind of like what I was saying a little bit earlier. So let's say, so this program combines two numbers. Whoops. And I can send this file, to a friend, right? And so they'll be able to see this code and run it. But the beauty of this is that I can get rid of the 50 and I can put any number I want, right? So I can just reuse this code, right? So all I'm doing is just changing the numbers that it's assigned to, right? So 100, second number is 400. We already have the code written, right? So the first number, add that to the second number, right? And then print. And so now I can save and run, right? And you get 500. And I can do, I can change this to subtraction, right? Maybe I can, instead of sum, maybe I can put difference and I can put a minus here, right? And print the difference, right? And so actually, let's do that. So I want to do the first number minus the second number. FFERENCE. Okay, and so file, save, and run. Okay, so we get negative 300, right? So I can use this over and over and over and over again, right? I can do multiply, right? I can have a multiplication here symbol, and I can multiply two numbers. Same thing with division, right? I can divide two numbers. So this is pretty good, right? I can reuse this code and just make small changes, okay? All right, I'm just going to change it back to addition because that's what we had, right? And so what was it? 50 and 75. And so this was the sum. Whoops. And we're printing the sum, right? Okay. There we go. And I will name this program 1, right? So this is our first program. I want to keep this here just in case you want to write this down. So I'm going to comment everything. Okay, so now that can stay. And just remember, since it's all commented out, it will not run. Okay, so there's the proof. All right, so now we're going to get a little more tricky, just a little bit more tricky. All right, so the next program is a paycheck calculator. So we are creating a simple paycheck calculator that anyone can use. All right, so we're going to prompt the user for the number of hours that they worked, right? We're going to store it in a variable. We're going to prompt the user for their hourly wage, right? So whatever their hourly wage is, and we're going to store that in a variable. And we're going to calculate the paycheck. And we're going to print the amount of money that they need to be paid. So let's I'm going to add just to clarify a little bit, let's just do a 40-hour week. Okay, so we'll just do a 40-hour week. All right, and do not worry about taxes. So this is just simply gross pay, right? So we only want the gross pay. Okay, so don't worry about taking out taxes or anything. All right. So 40-hour week. All right. And don't worry about taxes. Okay. Just a little bit of a hint. Remember what we did earlier. Remember these keywords here. Whoops, it's automatically capitalizing it. That's okay. Okay. All right, you may need some of these, okay? Because we are asking them for the number of hours that they work, okay? And we want their hourly rate. All right, and then we're gonna calculate the paycheck. All right, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to work on that. Let me zoom in for a little bit so you can see a little bit better. Okay. All right, so let's talk about this. All right, so let's come on back. Okay. All right, so we are talking about, this is program number 2. And this is a paycheck calculator. Okay, so we need to do a couple things here, right? So we are creating a weekly paycheck calculator, okay? So we need to prompt the user, right, for the number of hours that they worked. We're gonna store it in a variable, okay? So we need a couple things, right? Since we're going to prompt the user, right, we need input, okay? So what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna name it variables, right? So we need to store the answer in a variable. So let's create a variable that takes the number of the hours that they worked in the week, right? So let's do this. So we're gonna ask them the number of hours that they worked that week. So I'm gonna create a variable called hours worked. Okay, so hours worked, right? Now, we're doing a 40-hour week, okay? So we want an integer, okay? So we need to do int, right? And then since we're asking them, we want their input. So we need the input function as well, okay? So integer, right, input, and then we are asking them how many hours did you work this week? Okay, so how many hours did you work this week? Okay, okay, we need to close both parentheses. All right. So how many hours did you work this week? We're going to store that in a variable called hours worked. Okay, the next thing we need, right, number 2, prompt the user for their hourly rate, and we're going to store that in a variable, right? So we need a variable that's going to take in the number or their hourly rate, right? So we can call this hourly rate. Okay, so hourly rate, right? And so let's just ask them, right? And so we're going to ask them what is their hourly pay. Now, we could use an integer, but not, some people may get paid, $12 an hour, or $12.50, or $20.50, right? So we don't really want an integer because of that, right? We need a float, right? Because they may get paid, $20.50 an hour, right? So we want to include the decimals that may be there, right? So it's just better to use a float versus an integer in this case, right? Does that make sense? Right? So I don't want an integer, I want a float, okay? So float, and then input, okay? And we are asking, what is your hourly pay? Or, well, we can do hourly rate, okay? What's your hourly rate? Or maybe let's do this. How much are you paid per hour? Okay. And I forgot a question mark there. Okay. So let's close. Right. So how much are you paid per hour? Right. So we have an integer input. How many hours did you work this week? Right. And again, we're just doing 40. Right. Hourly rate. We're going to use a float. Right. And how much are you paid per hour? All right, so next we need to calculate this, right? So we need to calculate we need to do the hours worked, right? Multiply that by your hourly rate, right? So what we need to do, and we need to store this in a variable as well, right? So what I'm going to do is let's call this, trying to think of a decent name for it. We can just call it pay, something simple, right? And so our pay will be equal to, right? We need to multiply, right? So we need to do the hours worked, okay? And we're going to multiply that by the hourly rate, okay? So your pay is going to be equal to the hours that you work, right? When you type in the hours that you work, you multiply that by your hourly rate, okay? And then finally, we want to print a message, right? So print the amount of money the employee needs to be paid, right? Again, don't worry about taxes, right? So let's just do a print, and then your paycheck is, okay? Now, remember, we need to combine this, right? We need to combine data types, right? So to do that, remember, we're not going to use a plus sign, right? We need to use a comma, okay? So we need to use the comma, right? And so your paycheck is, right, our pay, right? We're doing our hours work multiplied by your hourly rate. So I'm going to do pay, okay? And then I will just say before deductions, right? Before taxes, right? Before taxes, each checkup, right? All right. Okay. So yes, so this should work. Okay, I don't see any issues here. Let's go ahead and file, and we'll save. Let's run. All right. So how many hours did you work this week, right? So so remember, we're doing a 40-hour work week, right? So put 40. Okay. How much are you paid per hour? Right. So let's do 1075. Okay, so we work the 40-hour week and we are paid 1075 an hour. Okay, so there we go. Right, so your paycheck is $430 before deductions, right? Not too bad, right? And so again, this is something that I can send this to a friend. If they don't know how much they're supposed to get paid, we can send them this program and say, hey, the work's already done. All you have to do is just answer these questions and bam, you know how much you're going to get paid before deductions. And again, of course, you can play around with this. So let's say I want to run it a second time, right? And so we work 40 hours. Let's say you get paid, trying to think, $30.50. Okay. And so your weekly paycheck is right $12.20 before deductions. Right. So not too bad. I like it. This is a pretty good program that you can save this program and you can use it over and over and over and over again, right? Okay. And for your friends that are not very good at math, you can go ahead and send this program to them. And all they have to do is just type it in and they know how much they will get paid before deductions. Okay. All right. So those were our two programs, or our two big programs that we did, or that we have just done. Right. So let's say you want some more help with Python, right? And so again, this is not everything there is to know about Python. There is way more to Python and programming languages. And there's loops, if-else statements. Okay. So I want to take you to one of my favorite websites, which is W3 Schools, right? So w3schools.com. And so as you can see, so Python, we have a Python tutorial, and on the side, here's everything you need to know about Python. If we pretty much did everything up to, I would say, Python data types. Okay. And so, yeah, we've done pretty much everything from home to Python data types. And so if just a refresher, feel free to come to this website, w3schools.com. This is free. I don't think you need an account. Although they do have paid, courses, but I just stick with the free stuff. I think the free stuff is pretty good, right? And so this is some of the things that we went through earlier, right? The string, the integer, float, okay, getting the data type, and let's see, we had getting started, the syntax, like the rules, okay, comments, how to make comments in Python, right, with the little pound symbol. We also talked about variables as well, right? The print function, okay? All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Just want to see if we have, yes. Yes, thank you, Christy. All right, so that was Python getting started. This was my first time teaching a Python class, so hopefully it went really well. Was there any questions that anyone had? If not, thank you. If not, I want to thank you all for being here on your Saturday morning.